Welcome to Unfiltered Summit Sisters. I'm Gina.
And I'm Julia.
We are two ride-or-die best friends who are paving the path for what true, authentic relationships look like.
We're facing hardships head-on, having real, uncensored conversations, supporting each other's growth, and shining a light on true, raw healing.
We are navigating the world the best we know how.
Having a hell of a time doing it.
Laughing every step of the way.
Through the rain
and sunshine.
This is Canyon Culture.
Welcome back to Unfiltered Summit Sisters. It is a gorgeous day up here at Silver Lake Flats. Look at that view.
So good. I might fall in the lake though. My chair is tilted.
Can you swim?
A little bit.
Can you float?
I can doggy paddle.
Perfect.
No, but this view.
I was a lifeguard, so.
Oh, perfect.
I got you.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
My mom wasn't like an Olympic swimmer or anything. I feel like I should know how to swim better than that.
Yeah.
But I feel like the last 3 weeks we've come up here for this mountain view particularly. You're gorgeous.
Yeah.
So pretty.
It's so beautiful.
It is so beautiful.
We have kind of an interesting topic idea that we want to talk about today.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see where it goes. How it
I
goes.
always love those when it's like we don't really have a direction. It's like, here's a topic that we have lots to say on. Let's see where we end up.
I love it.
2 hours later, we're like, oh, my bad. Sorry.
So the idea was hurt people hurt people.
We hear that a lot. It's all over. Like, it's kind of one of the newer, not newer, but it's like phrase that you hear a lot.
It's all over social media. You've got all the memes and all the things that everybody reposts.
All the mindset people, all the life coaches are talking about it.
Yes.
So obviously we have to join. Obviously.
Well, now we're not going to talk about it because everybody knows I hate doing what everybody else is doing.
Nobody has said a word about hurt people. Hurt people. We are breaking ground here.
Okay, we can continue. I think this statement has been really powerful in my life.
What is that? Well, we can, what if we explain a little bit more about what that means? Because I think that, I don't know, just break it down a little bit more.
I think there are a lot of different aspects to it when you say hurt people hurt people. I think the very first thing that I think about, that a lot of people think about, is, people who were abused go out and abuse other people.
Correct.
Right? But I think there are other aspects to that are less often thought about.
Okay. Like what?
I think that we all have unprocessed trauma. I think everybody does.
No.
And I think that can unintentionally hurt people.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that parents in particular, we're going to hurt our kids. Not intentionally, most of us.
Dang it. Hopefully.
But unintentionally, we are going to hurt our kids.
Yeah.
And I think that's a different aspect that is not as thought of.
Correct. Well, also just the idea we're all going to be in pain at some point, and that's not going to, as much as we are not loving our pain, we're not going to be treating people around us well. So it's not just our kids, it's all relationships.
Yes. And when it's not like we're going out and I'm treating people from my pain today. Nobody consciously thinks of that.
I'm hurting, so everyone get out of my way or I'm going to beat you up.
Well, I don't know. Some days I do feel like that.
That's true.
But for the most part.
Right. We're talking general here.
For the most part. We don't intentionally go out and use our pain to hurt other people.
Which kind of leads us to the next part that we want to talk about, is just this idea of, I guess maybe, I don't know if this is the next part, but this is what I think of, is that idea, knowing that when somebody does something to hurt me, it's probably more likely that they're in pain versus me actually doing something wrong.
Yes.
I give them more grace, and then I'm not as hurt.
Yes. That has been the most powerful part of this subject for me, is learning that when people hurt me, whether it's intentional or not, it's coming from a place of their own trauma and their own past and their own hurt that has nothing to do with me. Right. So one, I don't have to take things personally because it's not about me. And two, I do give them more grace and go, God, if they felt so yucky that they acted that way, how miserable for them.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, I agree. It's it makes it so that you're coming from a place of love and you can end the cycle of hurt. We have a cocoon for
I know we do because it's a
our
little
microphones.
windy.
We're risking it for the view.
We are.
But yeah, I just think there's a lot of areas where this does apply, and I love having that perspective and understanding so that I'm not continuing the cycle of the pain, right?
Right.
Because if you do something, you're hurting, and you do something and it hurts me, and then I am now hurt, I'm then going to go hurt other people.
Right, and it's this vicious cycle that can be passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, grudges, all the things. You know, like the Hatleys and McCoys and different like families that just hate each other for centuries.
Right.
And then you get to a point where like, why do we hate each other? No one knows why.
Yes.
It's that.
Yes.
But it's something that also is like deep within us, right? Like there's something about this energy that this hurt that we carry from generations or from childhood or from abusive relationships that's not even something that's in our heads every day. It's just in us.
Right.
Whether it's a victim mentality, whether it's just bitterness towards, I mean, like for a while we were really bitter towards men.
Oh, absolutely.
Like men in general. Like we didn't want to talk to anybody. Like no, you have a penis, we don't like you. Get out.
Yes, we went through a season of that for sure.
Lasted a little longer than it should have, but it's fine.
It's true.
I still dip into it every now and again. But yeah, it just I don't love the energy of being in that painful, hurtful space because it's just the negativity. Like there's no light, there's no like we don't need to add more hurt and more pain to our lives. There's plenty of that to come.
But I also think that there are a lot of people walking around unconscious in this world who are hurting other people. Not intentionally, not consciously. They are just living life on autopilot.
Yeah.
And don't even realize it.
That's true. Which again comes back to this idea of have grace for other people. Like, what is it that people say? They're like, always be kind. You never know what somebody else is going through. It's that same idea. It's that grace. It's that idea of just we don't know what they've been through.
Yes, and being human is hard.
Really is.
Really is.
One of the things that really motivated me to leave my relationship was that idea of what was the hurt happening with me and my kids. What kind of life is that going to lead for us in the sense of by me staying, my kids are getting hurt and I'm getting hurt and I was not the best mom I could be and I was not providing the best life that I could give them because I was in a hurtful space. We were being hurt. And especially with boys who are not super in touch with their feelings and stuff, the likelihood of that cycle continuing, of them becoming narcissistic, of them continuing to be abusive people, because my ex's parents, my ex's dad was abusive towards him, right? So it's like, it really is like, I'm like, no, I'm breaking this cycle. Like, we're not doing this.
Right.
We're not going to do this.
Yeah, I think that's a great example that we've both lived.
Teaching our kids, like, we're not doing this. We teach our kids kindness and grace all the time. How many times do we sit there and like, so-and-so pulled my hair, whatever. And you're just like, yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you, but it's not about you.
Right. Right.
I feel like I have that conversation often.
All the time with kids.
Right.
All the time. She called me a baby. Are you a baby?
Yeah. Then who cares?
No. Okay.
Yeah. Teaching them to not care what people think and what people think about them and what people say is a hard one.
Yes.
Because we do teach words have power, but we also are teaching, you also get to decide what kind of power it gives.
You get to decide whether or not to let that in.
Which is a very complicated concept for children. It's right? Words have power. Watch what you say. But also you get to pick if it gives you power. But words have power, but you also get to pick it. It's like, this is...
So...
like, get it? Got it? Good. Moving on.
Okay. Snack time.
But so this was interesting. So right now my kids are in Texas with their dad. And I feel like it's always on the 4-week mark. I start to feel better and I start to get a hold of things. And then we're on the countdown and then they get home. And I'm like, could we do this earlier? But I will often occupy as much of my time as possible so that I'm not alone. So I'm not overthinking things. So I'm not in my head, which means I just plan. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants all the time. I'll show up at your house. I'll show up at somebody else's house. Like, hey, let's go get dinner. Let's go do this. Let's go. I don't know. I'm going up the canyon. I'm always trying to be moving.
Yeah.
And so I have a friend who we were texting and she was like, these are the days I have off of work. I was like, great, let's do something. But then as the days went on, I just kept busy and I didn't think about reaching out to her and and so it got to a day where I was like, hey, what are you doing? And she said she had to work. I was like, let's ditch, like, let's play, like, work's dumb. And she's like, yeah. She's like, well, I had these days available, but you were busy. And she was not rude. She was not unkind. She just was factual about it. And I kind of sat there and it made me think. And I was like, oh, I was a bad friend and I possibly hurt her feelings by making tentative plans and not following through and not making our friendship any sort of priority. Because she did check in with me. And I was like, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And so she was like, I had these days off and you were busy. And even in that time, she had to get a little surgery and I wasn't there for her. I just wasn't a good friend. And she didn't have to point it out. She didn't point it out in a rude way. She was so kind and respectful. But I got this vibe through text message, whether she wanted it to be the vibe or not, that I was not a kind friend and I wasn't there for her and I wasn't available. And I should have been and I could have been. And I just took accountability for it. I just said, I'm so sorry. I should have been there. Like I'm that was my bad. I will work on being a better friend. And she was really kind about it, but I like that. I appreciate the way that she went about it, where it wasn't like aggressive or mean. It just pointed out a fact that she was available and I wasn't. And I'm really proud of myself for being in a space of going, instead of being defensive and being like, I'm hurting, I get to be this way because I'm hurting. It was, nope, that's my bad. I shouldn't have done that. Just taking accountability and fixing it.
Yeah. I love that. That's beautiful. And I think that it speaks to the kind of authentic relationships that you've created, that she also felt comfortable enough to say that.
Yeah.
Another good example I have is my dad.
Yeah.
Dad Hayden, Doc Hayden. There are 7 of us kids, and Dad is parented for a very significant amount of time. We won't say how long because I'm the oldest and that's going to give away my age. And
25.
I'm 21.
Oh, sorry.
21.
I aged you a little bit. I'm so sorry.
And he has never been a perfect parent. There's not a perfect parent, but he has shown us a million ways to be a great parent. And I have learned so much from watching him parent my younger siblings. And so one of the things that he has always done and still does is he always puts relationship over anything else.
I love that.
All the time. And so for this particular subject that we're talking about, there have been times where one of my brothers or sisters has brought something up from childhood, right? And saying that, this was really hurtful. And Dad, no matter whether he remembers it or not, no matter whether he thinks it happened or didn't happen, always, what's the word I'm looking for? Validates.
Yeah.
Always validates those feelings and those memories for us. He recognizes that that is our perspective truth.
Yeah.
Whether or not it happened in reality, he knows it's our perspective truth. And he validates that to be part of our healing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the coolest thing ever. I think he's an amazing dad for that.
I have put a lot of thought and effort into this idea of taking accountability and not being defensive and having truth.
Yes.
And like being able to hear truth. Because it doesn't have to, like you said, it's people's perspective.
Right.
And so I love this idea of having relationships where you can voice those with somebody who isn't going to get defensive. Mm-hmm. I always want to be the kind of person that's in a space where I can hear hard things and take accountability for them and fix it.
Yes.
You and I had this a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that. I loved how that went. You and I haven't talked about it since the text messaging about it, but I loved how it went because there was a scenario where we were on the porch and you came up to the porch and had said something, and both me and Kaylee kind of snapped at you in a way that later you were like, that hurt, but I get that you're hurting. Because my kids had just left that day. And I hope this got portrayed, because we haven't talked about it, but I wanted to take accountability, like, oh my gosh, no, that is not, because the snapping wasn't at you.
Right.
It was in reference to something else. But either way, it doesn't matter where it came from. I love that you were willing to bring it up to me.
Right.
And I always want to be in a space of, that's not how I ever want you to feel. And I'm sorry that my actions made you feel that way. It wasn't meant to be, but no matter what, that's what it felt like to you, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's where we ended.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was. And I think that I love that we've created that relationship, because I would never want you to not say anything because you know that I'm hurting.
Yeah.
I would never want you to be like, man, she's really being a bitch, but I know that she's hurting, so I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
I would never want you to do that.
It's weird because it's scary and it's uncomfortable, but in the end, it draws us closer.
Yes.
And I always know where I
absolutely.
stand with you, and I love that. I love that. And I have a question in a second about that with relationships, because as I'm dating and as I'm learning that I really do value honesty, even if it's hard to hear,
Right.
I do feel, I was talking to Shirley about it, and she was like, the way that you take, whether it's constructive criticism or this hurt me, like a hard conversation, she's like, the way that you take it is unique. Not a lot of people do that. And I'm like, I value that so much. I want a partner who's willing to be like you and say, this hurt my feelings, or hey, the way that you did this made me feel this way, because they know my heart and they know that that's not the intention, and they know that I want to better myself. And the people that are willing to come and talk to me about that are only going to come to me with stuff that are going to better me, instead of just be whiny and complaining, right?
Right.
And so I'm just learning that I want that in a partner, someone who's going to be willing to hear that from me, hear the truth of like, hey, this hurt me, or hey, I don't like how you did that, and not get defensive.
Yeah.
But I also work really hard on being somebody who doesn't get defensive and receives that well and takes accountability. I'm learning so much about how far accountability goes, how healing, taking accountability, just like your dad does. With, even though he may not see it that way, or there may be a lot of backstory, it doesn't matter. That's their truth.
Right.
And he just takes accountability for it. And so I'm learning, and I'm not perfect, and I probably could have handled the situation with you where I'm just like, I'm sorry that I didn't need to give excuses. I could have just taken accountability and been done with it. But no matter what, I love that I felt like that brought us closer together, and that you have more trust in me, that knowing that I never want to hurt you. And I know that you're always going to come to me if there's a problem.
Absolutely.
So my question that I have for you is, how does that look with your relationship with your boyfriend?
It's hard. It's a lot different.
Why is that?
Because I'm closer with him than I am with anyone else, including you.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's a romantic relationship. And he is my ultimate best friend, and that's hard for me. So example, I have had a lot of anxiety lately, and multiple anxiety attacks in the last, 14 days. And he came to me, and he's like, and he said, basically, you've been really mean lately.
Oh.
And I know that it's not you, and it's not from you. I know that it's from the anxiety, right? And we have the kind of relationship that he has the freedom to come and say those things.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I'm still working on trauma from my 13-year abusive marriage. So what I hear is, I don't want to be around you. I don't like you.
Right.
You're not fun. You're not right. So I'm hearing all of these things.
You're hearing the voice of a previous partner.
I am. And that's really difficult for me right now. And so I have to combat that by saying those things out loud. I want to validate my boyfriend in that, right?
Yeah.
I'm really sorry that I've been mean.
Yeah.
Even though it's been unconsciously and none of it's been intentional. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that I did this or that. At the same time, I do have to say, do you still like me?
I need validation that this is
it's
okay.
hard. And I don't want to make it all about me when he's trying to express feelings or hurt feelings
on his
from
part.
me on his part.
Yeah.
I don't want to turn it and make it about me. So it's really a balancing act, because I'm still healing from a lot of trauma. I'm still dealing with a lot of anxiety, but his feelings very much matter, just as much as mine do. Oh my God, look at the babies. They're so cute. Oh my God, I want to hold
Get a picture
one.
so we can post it.
It is so cute. Oh, it's in my pocket.
There's ducklings. How many ducklings? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Adorable.
Nature, baby. How many are there? 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Or 8? There's 8. Oh, they're so cute. Good job, Mama. Okay. You really got your hands full. You have a TV? Sorry.
8's not like 10 or 12, but she's doing a good job. Okay, sorry.
Do better.
Wildlife.
This is why we're here.
Anyway, so it is different in a relationship. It takes a lot more work, and there's a lot of vulnerability
there's more, I was
there.
going to say, there's more vulnerability when you're in a romantic relationship,
Yes.
because there's every aspect of who you are is getting tapped into by this
Yes.
other person, quite literally. And
Yeah.
sorry. And so the vulnerability is more than anybody else.
Mhm.
And so meeting that validation, I totally get that. I see myself being like, I'm going to,
But it's
every day I would like, do you like me?
But he handles it so well, because it's just it's very quick. It's not like we're sitting here and having this 10-minute conversation. It's are you still my best friend?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, absolutely, and we move on.
So do you feel like those moments are healing and grow you closer
Yes,
together?
they're hard, they're vulnerable, they're raw, but they're also beautiful and healing and growing us closer together. And I have come far because I can ask, do you still want to be my best friend? He says yes, and we're done.
Yeah.
There's not another thought after that. There's not another thought of, I don't know if I still believe you or not, which is where I was.
Are you gaslighting me?
Right.
When are you holding this against me later?
So we're growing, we're healing.
Well, how does he
moving.
handle, like, how do you handle taking his, well, I don't want to say criticism, but this hurts me. Like, how do you make sure that you address his feelings?
I have to be very careful, because when he says you've been mean, my gut human reaction is defensiveness.
Most people's
especially when I'm going, I didn't do anything on purpose to be mean. Right. So I am learning that the moment I feel defensive, I need to slow the hell down.
That's what I was just
I need to slow down. I need to breathe, and I need to step back and figure out where we are.
I think that's the best advice, is that when you're dealing with somebody who's hurting you or giving you hard truths, that's their hard truth, is to, and I think that feeling of defensiveness is a great, I don't want to say trigger, a great pinpoint to stop and slow down and really think, how do I want to respond? Do I want to jump at it defensively? Where is that going to get me? Because when is being defensive ever going to be beneficial?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I start feeling defensive, I'm going, is this going to actually make it better? And there's never been one moment where I'm going, yes, defensiveness is the correct action. Even when we're like trying to co-parent with my ex, it's going, defensiveness isn't going to move us in the direction of peace and a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that learning about emotions and feeling that defensive emotion is a trigger for me, or a pinpoint for me to go, stop, slow down, and let's think before we act. Do I want to be received as somebody who gets defensive, or do I want to be received as somebody who takes accountability or gives grace?
Yes.
And I love that that's a huge lesson for me, and that's how I'm able to do that, is I slow down.
And I do think that it looks different in different scenarios, right?
Yeah.
So with both Eric and you both know me so well, and you both love me unconditionally, that there's never in my mind, are you guys coming from a place to attack me or be mean to me or hurt me? So if you are saying a hard truth to me, I trust you. I trust your heart. I trust your character.
Yeah.
And so it's a little different if I have someone on the outside of my circle. There's going to be a little more thought put into that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Because there's trust and there's loyalty and there's understanding of the person. And if it's a stranger at a grocery store, sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, because you're like, you don't know me. Why would you ever say that to me?
Right.
But I don't know. I'm loving that this is a concept I am moving to teach my kids.
Yes.
I want to heal the cycle.
Yes.
I want to break the cycle and heal the damage. I want my kids to understand that their hurt is no one else's problem. Mm-hmm. And getting them to where most all of their relationships are in that space of not getting defensive.
Right.
And understanding that if I'm hurting other people and they're coming at me, that's an opportunity for me to grow.
Yes.
If I'm hurt and I'm behaving poorly, that's a pinpoint of showing I need to heal this. Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many different life lessons to be learned with this idea of hurt people, whether it's on the receiving or the giving end. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's to me, it's been so freeing since my divorce. Yes.
Well, and I think what you're saying, the goal with our kids is to teach them the process, because we're never going to be done healing.
Yes.
People are always going to hurt us in this world, right? Yep. So it's teaching them the process of how we go about handling that.
Yeah.
And how we do our best to heal what we can.
There's also this idea of we don't know everything that's going on in somebody else's life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I don't know, for me, I'm going, is giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, does that hurt me in any way? I think about that because sometimes it would, right? Like if you're in a relationship and somebody does something like at the beginning of a relationship,
right,
and you're always giving the benefit of the doubt, and then all of a sudden you're in an abusive relationship because you didn't see any of the red flags, right? There's that idea. But also there's just scenarios where I'm going, this person didn't treat me well. Let me give them the benefit of the doubt that they had a hard day. And how is that going to affect me in a negative way, or is it only going to put me in a positive space? Does that make sense? Like if
I need to remember that when I'm driving.
Well, I also feel like if you're in the car and you say mean things, they don't hear it, so it doesn't count.
Oh,
that's my rule. As long as they don't hear it, it doesn't count. Now the difference is that Jesus heard it, and so you may have to talk to him about it, but he's also really good at forgiving and all that.
That's true. That's very true.
But yeah, I don't know. I think this is such a good lesson. It's a good lesson to teach kids because just like what you said a second ago, it's a process that we will use forever.
For sure. And I think that while we hear all the time that hurt people, there's the flip side of that. Healed people, heal people.
Aww. That's adorable. Yeah. I love it. Because it does.
They do. And anytime that someone is coming to me telling me a hard truth, whether it's you or Eric, at the end of it, there's more healing on my end.
Right. Because like our experience drew us closer together.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was just like that moment we took that opportunity to heal our friendship, which didn't have a whole lot of healing to be had, but that moment did.
We did it. Fix the blister.
I'm a blister
I don't know.
now?
I don't know.
I am so grateful that I feel like you and I have the opportunity to learn lessons without us seeking out said lessons.
Right.
And I love that opportunity. I love that you and I are both in a space where we are open to always learning and healing. And I feel like God's like, here's an opportunity. And so we're halfway through the process going, oh my gosh, we're halfway through. I didn't even realize we were doing it. I have those moments and I'm just like, we're doing so good. And I just give all the glory to God and just be like, thank you so much for giving me an open heart and a relationship to practice that, and a relationship to give me a space, like an example of what I'm looking for in a partner, because I want to make sure this is such an important part that carries over into my partner.
I feel like with everything you just said on Facebook, it should say you're in a relationship with me until your man comes, and then you can transfer it to him.
As lovely as that sounds, there's lots of needs that you will not be fulfilling for me. So
it's true.
You can't hold that.
It is very true.
We already asked God to make us lesbians, and He said no. So then you got your boyfriend, and I have an empty bed. It's fine. Moving on. Sorry. It's fine. I'm not bitter about it at all.
I'm not going to say that. Okay. I am grateful.
This is taking a turn. We need to wrap it up.
It is. So she said, stop saying that every time. I am grateful for our podcast because I often forget to look back and see how far I've come. And so I can get really bogged down with, I've had so much anxiety the last 14 days and I've had anxiety attacks and I get really bogged down with that. And I forget to look back and go, but look how far you've come. Yeah. Look how much.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Unfiltered Summit Sisters.
Come join us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to get a sneak peek into our lives.
It's beautiful, chaotic, crazy, and fun.
What else would you expect raising 10 kids?
All the links you need are in the show notes.
See you next week.